Speaking of...
It was foggy on the way over here. Now we're facing the light.
Shoot, man.
It's always the bright.
It's
always the brightest after the dark, man.
You don't know what there really is, huh? As far as... Hold on, let me turn on this freaking navigation thing. No, home. Audio. Okay. Alright. Yeah, so what drugs do you think make you sensitive to light? Because, like...
I think opiate to do for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think, like, some stuff that people take to go to sleep? Not me, though, but other people. Because, like, sometimes I'll take Benadryl. I'll take Benadryl, you know, to help me sleep. North is left lane.
So we had a failed attempt at trying to get this thing going. Danny was cool enough to offer to drive. What do we think about patience?
Patience is waiting with a good attitude. I know that sounds like that fits anything anywhere, but that's the way I understood it once, and I really like that example. Patience is waiting with a good attitude, which is hard to do.
Depending on the situation, yeah, that's kind of the challenge. Is if you're not the one waiting, it's not too bad.
But that's the thing, is like, you know, I was in enough situations over my life that were hurry up and wait. And I'm not just talking about, you know, my life as, you know, the first 30 years of my life, which I talk about is documented. I'm talking about hurry up and wait actually was something that, you know, I do to this day. It's like hurry up and then wait. It's like even when we do stuff at my wife and I, and it's like hurry up, we gotta go to the show. Like we were just in Vegas and watched La Rev at the Wynn, and we watched Amisteth or Astamith or some show at Caesars, and then we watched Mariah Carey, and then we watched...
Did you get Wayne Newton?
No.
You didn't get Wayne Newton?
So we were there for the whole Thanksgiving, 5 days before Thanksgiving. We were there Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and drove back on Thanksgiving. But each night we caught a show, and it was the same. It was hurry up, get ready, hurry up and be there, then be sitting in our
and then
seats
chill.
waiting.
Yeah.
And it's hurry up and wait. And okay, when's the show gonna start? It's already the time. So I think we do that a lot as far as hurry up and wait. But I believe I was conditioned to that because of all the times when I was growing up, and when you're in the system, it's like they get you up like that. You go wait in the holding tank
for hours
till after breakfast, and then they load up the bus, and then they wait in the bus, and they drive you. Like back then, you have to go from Visalia to Porterville Court if you got caught in Porterville or Lindsay.
Would you say it's the inefficiency?
Yeah.
That's the inefficient part of the system.
Yeah, then it's just like then you
a
go,
whole day to get.
Then you wait in the bus, and then you get unloaded at
6 minutes of.
And then you go into the courtroom, and it's just like, wait a minute, what happened? And it's just like you were in there like less than 60 seconds.
Yep.
Then you go back and you wait till the night time, and then they serve you your lunch or whatever in a bag, and then you get back on the bus and then travel back to Visalia, then be in the holding tank, and sometimes dinner, you miss dinner, too bad, another sack lunch. And so remember, they woke you up at 1, and by the time you get back to your tank, then you get back to the tank, right? And it's like 11 o'clock at night.
Talk about patience.
And remember, this was all for like a 1 minute appearance in front of court.
Yeah.
And then the funny part about it is as soon as you get back, you're thinking, okay, man, it's got up at 1 o'clock. It's that. There's like all these people waiting for you. And they're all like,
what happened?
so
Yeah, like, what was the deal? Nothing. I saw the guy for 60 seconds.
Yeah,
and
everybody wants to know, so what happened? And it's really, if you really think about it, it's transferable in the sense that we're talking about, being in jail, and we're laughing about it because we're past that. We've gotten through that, and today, we're free to come and go as we want. But it's like that. It's, again, it doesn't matter the words. It's all words. Right now, we just talked about that, and the example is about enjoying the journey. Because no one wants to know about what happened in court for 60 seconds. They want to know what happened throughout the day.
On the way.
Who was the...
Anybody go off?
Yeah. Who did you see? Because when you're going, people are getting released that day, and you find out, and they ride back on the bus with you. Then from there they go. And then also when you go, people come back that got busted that weekend, and they've been there since Friday, and it's Monday. And they've been there all week and waiting to come back to go to the jail. So it's all about, it's the journey, and there's a lot of scenarios, there's a lot of examples about it's the journey, it's not the destination, it's the journey. So I guess the takeaway is hurry up and wait. And what is patience? Waiting with a good attitude. And if you wait with a good attitude with patience, you actually enjoy the journey. And I was conditioned for this since the juvenile hall days, I guess. Or even from back before that, when my mom would make us all get up early and get dressed and get ready for church. And then we'd be waiting, sitting in the church waiting. We'd be the first ones
nothing.
So I don't know, man, but now I like waiting. I like it. I can wait with a good attitude.
You've been conditioned to it. And I imagine it's a contrast, too, because everything else after waiting, like I remember that going and having to wait all day for something that takes a couple seconds. Everything else in life is sort of easier in a way. You're like, well, that's nothing. I still can move around. I can go get something to eat, or I have freedom,
Yeah.
It's not as bad when you think of it in comparison.
I heard this sermon the other day, and that's the thing. What I want people to take away from the channel as I post these videos is you can take anything. Like, for example, I'm going to give you an example of a sermon, and so everybody relax. I'm not getting all woo woo. It's turning faith based, so that's what he's about. Yes, I believe in spirituality, and yes, but no. Let me explain to you. The sermon...
If I can, what was that thing you said earlier about spirituality? What's the difference between a religious person and a...
religion is for people who don't want to go to hell, and spirituality is for people who've been through some hell or been through hell. And that's why I consider myself a spiritual person, not a religious person.
All right, so go ahead.
So in the sermon, the minister's talking, and he says, he's using the example of a housewife. He says, never say I'm a nobody. Never say I'm just a cook. I'm just a housewife. Not only that, but then you're also organizing everybody. Then he threw this in because I guess this is the world we live in today. He goes, you're also the Uber because you're dropping everybody off, keeping everybody on schedule. And so it was like, even though it was a faith-based sermon, when he used the example of the housewife, it's like I had never heard the housewife being an Uber too, but that's like the new thought, the new thought leaders. That's how you have to be able to expand on everything. We can add a little bit more current meaning to the significance of being a housewife by just the term Uber, because it's part of our new language. It's a word we use a lot more often. 10 years ago, if somebody would have said, oh yeah, I know who that is, he Ubered me. people would be like, hey,
Look
what
around
the,
confused.
like, what the, he Ubered you? You know what I mean? Like Google, like I remember I did a video. And
Just something it.
And yet I had a student say, hey, Mr. Longoria, you know, I can Google you, right? And I was just like, hey, like, we're not...
Go easy. No, go easy.
Like, that's inappropriate. He's like, no, Google. You go to the internet. And this was like, you know, I've been doing this since I met you, like in 2000.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when the internet came out, I was doing this, and Google, believe it or not, was the new thing at one time. Or when you hear the word Google, it's like, what is that? So what is it? If you're wondering, okay, well, he could have got out of that by saying, be respectful to me and I'll be respectful to you. But you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, I think the whole word respect has totally lost its meaning. Like, honestly, like, it's totally lost its meaning. Like, the first thing people say when they walk into a room and they want to establish themselves, not necessarily establish dominance, but establish themselves, like, as an educator,
right,
as a keynote speaker, as a group facilitator, as head of household, or just part of a household, part of a group. It doesn't matter, but it's like, that's always the terminology they use. You respect me, I'll respect you. And it's just like, no. You know, my definition of respect and your definition of respect is based on our life experiences. So to me, respecting me is pretty much, and do not touch me. To where you disrespect, maybe I don't respond to you when you ask me a question the first time. I might hesitate, or I might not say thank you, or excuse me, or I'm sorry, or you're welcome, and that's disrespectful, that's rude. So, you know, it's, everybody has a different meaning, so I don't like that.
Yeah, I heard somebody tell me one time too about the difference between respect and fear, and people confuse the two. People assume that if you're respecting someone, that you're, you know, you have some reason to respect them, or they've done something. That's not true. If you run around and you threaten people, they're gonna say nice things about you to your face. That's not the same as if when you leave, they're like, man, I hope that guy gets what he has coming to him. Someone that respects you, they might not even like you, but when somebody says something about you in close quarters and behind your back, they're gonna go, you know what, they're gonna stand up for you. You know, that's the biggest difference. And I thought of it and I said, man, I think that's very true. So yeah, people have different perceptions of respect.
So in my opinion, never start a conversation where you are somehow in charge, regardless of the setting, with you respect me and I respect you. You be respectful to me and I'll be respectful for you, because already you're starting the whole, you're setting up the environment to be toxic, to be you're setting it up for everybody's character defects. In fact, the word respect usually triggers some
kind of response.
Defect.
Like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it triggers a character defect where it's like right away, it's like, you know, like, this person thinks they're better than me, this person is putting themselves above me. But if I'm in a room, in an environment where everybody's looking to me and I'm the person speaking, and that's going to be my role, then I never say, if you respect me, I'll respect you, because I just can't do that. I can't. I used to. It's just crazy, but it's like respect is this blanket word, and it's not even a warm blanket. To me, respect is like that blanket that itches you and isn't comfortable, and it's too hot, and it's like you just want to throw it off. I have videos that I've been filming, and I only use them in private, and so over time, people have suggested, hey, you should do a YouTube channel, and that way people can see your videos. I find them to be pretty cool. I'm out here speaking about
planning and setting goals, and that a goal without a plan is just a wish. How many times have you like talked yourself into, cried yourself into, lied yourself into something, promised yourself into something just to cry yourself out of it later because you didn't think it all the way through? And that's what happens a lot of times in life, is we make these decisions, these emotional choices like, I know if I do this, it'll work out. And with the rest of your life, what are your goals? Do you see yourself, honestly, in 5 years, do you see yourself doing the same things that you're doing now? Or do you see yourself doing something better with yourself? Well, you have to set that goal, but you need to plan. Because a goal without a plan is just a wish. And that didn't come until later in my life. And today, I've learned that before I set a goal, or while setting a goal, there also has to be a plan. And the plan is the hard work that goes behind it. And don't ever feel like you fail if you try something and you give it your best and it doesn't work out. But ask for help. That's what's helped me become the person I am today, and that's the person that I hope one day I can help you become, and share more of my story with
Pretty
you.
cool. And I just didn't know, like people say, well, what do you call it? What would you call it? What kind of YouTube channel is it? And I would just get all like, oh man, I'd get all, perplexed. I'd just be dumbfounded.
And this is more of a personal insight, into what you think about some things too. Like that respect thing, I think there's a lot of people that if they've seen it and they've seen your previous stuff, they might be surprised, even if they might connect something to it, go, oh yeah, okay, I can see that, like your background and stuff, where it comes from.
Yeah, where it was like totally totally backwards. But so when people would ask me, you should put your videos on YouTube, you should put your videos on YouTube, why don't you? I believe that as much as you learn about me, you might think like, wow, this person should have skin like leather and nothing should hurt his feelings and he should be confident, all the things he's overcome, all, that's all great, all these, landmarks and, everything that I've, persevered through. But honestly, there's only one muscle in the body that can be broken or crushed by a harsh word, and that's your heart. But it's also the only muscle that can be healed and restored with a kind word. I didn't want to do a YouTube channel because I felt people would eventually comment and critique, but then I realized that rather than keep it away from the 85% of the people that might like it, for the 85, 90, 15% that wouldn't like it.
They'll battle it out too, I'm sure, on the comments. Everybody has positive and negative to them. We're complex people.
Every video that I make, believe me, it wasn't like, hey, I heard this thing on substance use disorder, so I made this video on substance use disorder. I may do a video where the main content, the context of it is around substance use disorder, but believe it or not, the lesson that I created from that, and then the video that I filmed on it, and what I say on the video, was actually a compilation of something I seen on a sitcom.
Many things, yeah.
Something I read in a book, something I seen in a magazine while I was waiting somewhere, something I heard someone else say. So it's all interchangeable. It's just words. I put in a context that makes sense to me in the subject that I'm referring to at that point in time. Mm-hmm. I want people to be able to comment because I'm not the best me yet, and I can only be the best me if I allow people to tell me what they see that I can't see in myself. When I got clean and sober, that's what people said. It's like, you're usually the last one to see that your life is pretty much gone down. And it's like you don't even know when you've hit rock bottom. It's usually somebody on top with their hand down saying, hey, you know you've hit rock bottom, right? And it's like, no, I'm okay. And it's like, okay. But you know that's
you're
true.
unaware of, yeah.
Yeah, you're usually the last one to find out how bad it is. But I want to share it. You know, I want to share these videos. I want feedback. And I'm pretty excited. I've had people help me. You know, I've had people that are in their teens, in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s. Like people from the 20th century to the 21st century.
It's going to connect everybody.
That have helped me and given me feedback. And so I'm going to release this channel, and I just want to share. And I believe I'm going to probably release 1 to 2 a week. But then I also am going to, I believe, put it in categories. I think they're called playlists, is what somebody who is in their 20s said. Yeah, the playlist, that way people can better navigate. Like, hey, I'm an educator and I want to talk about, you know, we had an incident. And let's see if Mr. Longoria has a playlist on a certain incident. Because I'm not just going to talk about substance use disorder or how to exist in them. I'm not just going to speak about child support. I'm not just going to speak about self-help. I'm not going to just speak about emotional intelligence, social autism. At times it'll be like a bunch of notes, and then a topic comes up or something happens, and then it's like I put all these notes together, and then I look at it again, and then I'll make, you know, even a smaller synopsis and put it in a 2-3 minute video and share it with people.
A little background on what we were doing this morning. We were going to get a trailer, trying to start a plant-based business, and Daniel was kind enough to volunteer to drive and pick it up, and we had some setbacks, and I was kind of upset on the phone. That's where this whole topic of patience came from, and I see this, I see Daniel's face just kind of, okay, kind of like it is right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going, you know, I'm venting, and he's like, well, maybe it's just not meant to be, you know, and I think maybe that's where it comes from. I learned a lot of accepting things as they are from Daniel. I think a lot of your students have too. So, you know, something like that, a topic like that's good. Going back to the Vegas thing, you know who the person who founded it, I believe, was Meyer Lansky, in the old Italian mob. He was a Jewish fellow, but he has his story on where he got the idea. And it's funny that you said it, because the patience thing's gonna, you know, kind of come back full circle. He says
go.
He says he was, you know, his family came.
Wait. By the way, this is Ricky, and I've known Ricky since, you know, 20 years, and so that's who's on the other side of the camera.
Yeah,
so this is good stuff. Like, if you knew our history, you'd be no, you wouldn't be surprised. Because anyway, go ahead with the Miles Lansky thing.
So Meyer Lansky was this Jewish mobster. Source Perrier. If you want to give us free stuff, we'll take it.
No, so I'm not driving off the road, because you heard the. It's actually have the road divided.
A lot of construction.
Yeah, so like they have the rough line, the whatever, you're off center. In the center. So anyway,
so he talks about the story where he was living in, I think it was the 20s. They barely got to New York. You know, they're sort of the minority there in I want to say the 5 Points, and hell's, you know, a lot of Italian people, but he was kept inside for most of his childhood, and when he did go outside, it was a rough neighborhood, rough upbringing, a lot of gangs, everybody was poor. It's about, you know, a little bit after the Depression. And he talks about how his father worked with like his uncles, and they had this family full. They were poor, but they all had this community. You know, they all helped out, and his dad would come and give, you know, his pay for the day so they could eat. And I think they gave him something like 15 cents to get like roast, some cabbage, and everybody's waiting on him. And he says he goes for a walk, and he sees these kids playing dice, and this pile of money, something like about $1. You know, so back then it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he says, now I knew that I knew that if I put it down, there was a risk. I was gonna have to lose if I lost, but I didn't think of that. He said all I thought about was the fact that if I win $1.
Yeah.
You know, so these kids are playing it and they're doing it, and he watches a couple rounds and he says, I can do this. So he puts down the 15 cents, they throw the dice, he loses, they take him, and he's stuck there. And he's walking back home, and he says, the whole time I'm walking back, all I can think of is the fear and the shame. I'm gonna have to go back and face all my family and tell them how I lost the money, and God only knows what they're gonna say, you know. So he's walking back and he tells them, and his dad kind of just says, well, we'll have to try again tomorrow. You know, didn't even yell at him, and he said that hurt so much more. He said, but I never made another bet that I wasn't sure of. And the patience thing is like, if he had just been patient and gone, you know, got the cabbage, it'd have been fine. But he said that's where he got the concept of Vegas. He goes, people are willing to put down their life savings for the hope. It's a lie, though. The kids, he learned later that it was all a scam. They were going to rob them anyway. You know, the money was theirs. They weren't even playing a game, really. You know, if you've played craps, you know that. You know how it works. But he said that's where he got the idea. He goes, and from that moment on, I never made a bet that wasn't sure. But yeah, I think, you know, the patience thing, it gets away from us. So this morning we go, we're supposed to get the trailer. I'm trying to start this business, and I was just kind of upset. But, you know, that's why we have to recenter. And that's what hopefully these videos can do, is they can help somebody that's in a similar situation, sort of, you know. Get some fee. What do you think about that, Daniel? You think there's any truth to that?
All right, so Miles Lansky it's a really good example, and maybe that's where the word cabbage came from. When they talk about money, where'd you get all the cabbage? Yeah, because I remember I was doing this case and I was the gang expert, and then I was up on the stand, and it was totally you know, I didn't plan it. It was totally, what's the word when you just say something and it's like not expected? It was totally anyway, but pretty much I'm up on the stand, and so the attorney's asking me about prison and how do you know, and it's violent in there and different things like that, and I was like, yeah. So he's kind of establishing the foundation of, you know, being in prison and gangs in prison, because I'm a gang expert. So he's pretty much qualifying me, saying, hey, look, this guy's been in prison and he's been validated in gangs in prison. So the attorney was actually the one I was working with, but he had to establish my history so the jury could find me
why you're a valid,
credible.
Yeah.
And so then he says, so Mr. Lorber, like in prison, how did you know when something was going to happen? And I would say the majority of the time in the prisons that I was in, which are like the security housing units, the administrative segregation, like, you know, where you're locked up in the hole because of something that already happened out in the general population, I go, pretty much you could smell, you know, poop. You know,
you could separate the ice cream from the other stuff.
You know, you could smell it.
Is that like a, I don't mean to cut you off, is that like a defense mechanism or a safety thing, or is that just something that comes with time and training? And
you're actually asking a lot of the same questions that he was asking me. And I said, no, it's like people have usually the weapon keistered when we're out there and someone's about to get stabbed. You usually smell.
Oh, literally. Oh, okay.
You usually smell poop. And I remember being up there on the stand, and I said, I guess that's where the saying comes from, you know, poop is about to hit the fan.
Yeah.
And you knew it because they literally smell the, you know.
See, these are the things that
bile.
only, yeah.
The jury laughed. Like, I was like, it just like came to mind. And so then that was like the jury laugh, like, you know, and then even I laugh later, because when I'm up there, I'm really hyper focused to make sure I'm understanding what they're saying, and keeping intellect over emotion, because you can get pretty emotional when you're pretty much up on the stand. And there's two people, and one's trying to get you to share your experiences, and he's saying, hey, it's okay, you can share your experience, and the other one is trying to say, because of your experiences, you are not a good person. It's
So
pretty
one's trying to
crazy.
build you up and the other's trying to break you down, basically.
Based on your same experience. It's just amazing. So it's like, you know, you really have to keep your emotions out of it. But afterwards, you know, my emotions come back, and I'm, you know, driving, you know, after I took the stand, and I'm all like, my humor's back, and I started laughing. I find that there's a lot of crossover, and there's like a lot of continuum. Like, if you sit at a 12-step meeting,
Right.
then go to a faith-based meeting, then go to Overeater Anonymous meeting, then you go to a meeting for people who maybe have been victims of violence, whether it's racial
Self-help.
or LGBTQ, you know, some type of violence, trauma victims. Then you go to a meeting for PTSD veterans. Honestly, the language, a lot of the language and the examples used all fit in every one of those scenarios. And so in my videos, that's why I say don't like put me like in a hole, or don't put me like, oh, let me keep my hands on the steering wheel. Anyway, like, I remember when I was young, I grew up by a golf course, so there were always golf balls.
And Lindsay.
Yeah, right there, the golf course in Lindsay. So there was always golf balls, because there was no fence or nothing, so the balls would always bounce. And when they hit asphalt, forget it. They can like hit asphalt and then just fly another 50 yards. And so there were always golf balls in all these weird places all over, because we were like 5 houses down from the end of the street where the golf course was. And so from a very young age, I took a golf ball apart, like at 6 years old, and I realized it was all rubber bands. And I would like keep pulling on the rubber band,
Trying to find the secret.
and it was weird, like, how does this ball bounce? And then I remember we cut one open, and then just at 6 years old, me and other kids it's just rubber band, like. And so, but it always intrigued me. Then as life kept going, and as I kept experiencing, I realized that there's a lot of similarities between making a golf ball, where you start from, and then it's one rubber band over the other rubber band, and it's just
Layers.
going like this. Yes. And I've heard it in recovery, the human onion. It's a layer at a time.
I know that the wraparound thing, I remember when we first were doing our sessions, there was a woman there. I forget her name. She was an older woman at that little. Do you remember I'm talking about, the little house where we did the sessions?
Oh yeah.
And she
it was a house converted into an office.
Yeah.
And it was intensive outpatient.
I forget the name of the place, but the woman, she was a nice woman, but I was in total denial, and she's trying to sell me to read this AA book. She had an AA book for me, so I go off for like 10 minutes, and she sits there. I felt bad. I think I don't think I got a chance to apologize to her, but I didn't say anything rude, but I was just like, oh, you got it wrong. I'm not an alcoholic. I've done these harder drugs. Those don't apply to me. Alcohol's not a big deal, whatever. I don't need that. So she just calmly busts out this NA book. And I just, so I had to, I took it. I was like, all right then, But what the funny thing is, I was like full-blown alcoholic. I was drinking every day.
Yes.
You see? So, and the weird thing is like, aside from the vernacular, the alcohol or drugs, the steps are the same.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I think what you're talking about is like, if you go to a PTS group, you'd be surprised. The steps are the same. You're just talking about something else, So that self-help dynamic is real, but the process of getting, I guess, balance and peace back is you're going to have to do the same work.
Yeah, it starts with you. Pretty much, it does. You can call it drug court, you can call it gang court, veterans court, mental health court, and you can call them all these self-help groups, 12-step groups that are for all of these pathologies. But in the end, what it comes down to is you have to be at a place where you feel that your confidentiality and your anonymity is being addressed. So that's what it comes down to. That's what it came down to me when I got clean and sober. I remember it was like, oh, wait a minute, what are you talking about, fourth step and tell you? And I didn't understand the fourth step. I didn't understand that, no, we don't want to hear war stories. We don't want to hear about all that. It's just the nature of your wrongs. And I couldn't get the difference. And I didn't understand the nature of your wrongs. I thought they wanted me to confess. And I was like, I was hung up on that, and I was like, I'm not going to tell this person nothing because they're going to go repeat it. But the nature of my wrongs. And later on, what I found out is before I ever was a part of a gang, before I ever used drugs, alcohol, or tobacco, before I did any of that, I was already lying. 5, 6, 7 years old, I was lying. And I had never touched a cigarette or a beer or been in a gang, but I was already lying. I was already building what became my credo, that it was better to be feared than it was to be loved. And I would not, at that point, I was too small. I was 5, 6, 7 years old. I didn't realize that I was, using fear to control you. But because, you think who's going to be afraid of a 5, 6, 7 year old? But the fact is, I used lies to intimidate people because the cops are going to come. If it wasn't going my way, well, we got to go because the cops are going to come. They were just here yesterday. I'd make up a lie to put fear in them to get the response that I wanted. Or, I would lie about somebody. Hey, I think they were talking to the teacher. So when I finally got to that point where I started seeing the nature of my wrongs was, it didn't matter the drugs and alcohol, the gangs, the violence, all that came later. But the nature of my wrongs, it was like, where did I learn lying? Where did I learn manipulation? Where did I learn to get people in a triangle? And then, am I still doing that today? And that's something that I have to ask myself every day. Today, is that still my nature? And today it's not. Today my nature is to be, more helpful, more giving, more cheerful, have peace, have joy. And I find myself still tempted, but for the most part, I believe that I'm transparent and I'm not living in fear that people are going to find out that I'm doing something I shouldn't behind everybody's back this whole time.